got big guests ready to go.
This is America's favorite outdoor talk program.
Really? If these guests were fish, they would be lunkers.
Nature Children is where it's at.
Hello there, I'm a bass, and I am petrified of Alex Langer's show.
Outdoors This Week.
Everybody can participate, no matter how old you are, what income you are, or for that matter, what sex you are.
Anchor yourself right here, because it's time for Outdoors This Week.
Why, thank you, Mr. Announcer. We don't pay you enough. In fact, we don't pay you at all. We paid you once, and that was it. So, folks, welcome, 1,000 welcomes, and this is, in fact, your favorite fishing show, and if it's not, then please don't tell anybody that it's not. And we have with us a huge guest, Peter Thliveros, and that's a somewhat difficult name to pronounce, so that's why people refer to him as Peter T. I wouldn't mess with Peter. I don't know about you, Lynn, but I wouldn't mess with him.
I wouldn't mess with him.
He's a big bear of a guy. I'm sure he wouldn't never hurt a fly, and he has won over $2 million in his angling career. And I've seen him when he's been up on the stage at the Bassmaster Classic. Ray Scott would always announce him as 350-pound Peter T. It would echo through the stadium. He has won just about every single honor and award that there is in bass fishing through the years. His heroes are Rick Clunt and Guido Hipton, two of our friends here on the radio program. And he's a former restaurant cook who loves barbecue ribs. You know, I never would have guessed that. I never would have guessed that he's a former cook who loves barbecue. Now, what a revelation.
I know.
And his son Nick now is entering the fishing world as well. In fact, they're out fishing. We're going to join them, and they're out fishing right now as we speak. So our interview will be right from the water in their boat. Then, as if that's not enough, we have all of our usual suspects. We have Ron Linder. Do you know what Ron was talking about yet today?
He has one of his famous nature fakers and nutcases reports.
Nature fakers,
a
rant.
Yeah, a rant.
A Ron rant.
A Ron rant.
That's what we should call him, Ron rants from now on. And we got Ranting Ray. Why not Ranting Ron, right?
Yes.
And then we have none other than Larry Whiteley from Bass Pro Shops, Sammy Lee from the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, and then, of course, we have good old Wade Bourne, or as we know him here, good old what's-his-name, who always has something interesting to tell us. And, there's the music. I better get off. They'll fire me.
Coast to coast, this is Outdoors This Week with Alex Langer.
Hi folks, Ron Linder here for Linder's Angling Edge Television. We're still on the Pursuit Channel at Saturdays at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and WFN on Friday nights at 11 a.m. and I think it's 8 p.m. on WFN Network, and a lot of other places. By the way, you can also look for us on Ron Linder Facebook or Angling Edge Facebook, and you could look for our new book, anglingedge.com. Anglingedge.com, the greatest. You go look it up. You deserve to see the book. Okay. There's a new thing out here, and I just took a test. This is for an obsessive-compulsive syndrome. They found this new, it's called the obsessive-compulsive fishing syndrome. This is discovered by a new, some psychologist and psychiatrist someplace. And there's a test, a 20, naturally any of these syndromes, obsessive-compulsive syndromes have little markers to them, and they got a 20 question marker that identifies you whether you have an obsessive-compulsive fishing syndrome. I'm going to read them to you, and you think about it yourself. Now, I scored 20 out of 20. That means I'm done. If you score as little as 5 out of the 20, they claim that you've got it. But if you do, Al, my brother, did 20 out of 20, and my son Jim did 20 out of 20. So here they go. Question 1. Your Facebook profile picture is you holding a fish. 2, your first selection criteria for a home purchase or rental is the perfect and permanent spot for your boat and trailer. For me, that was an absolute. 3, you think about fishing at least every 10 minutes or less. 4, you have a closet full of logoed shirts, sweatshirts, and hats with your favorite fishing boat brands. Absolutely. And lure brands, I might add, in my case. In fact, my wife noticed that I don't even have a shirt that don't have a logo on it. If you live north of the 41st parallel, you also own a winter version of that wardrobe, but these have ice fishing brands on them. 6, if the climate that you live in, depends on what it is, your boat jacket has a boat brand logo on it. 7, you match your truck and boat trailer. You try to color coordinate them. 8, you have bins and bins or tubs and tubs of crankbaits, yet you still go out and buy more. 9, you speak in a code. For example, we took a bunch of lunkers today down at the back end of the slide. It's words like this. Your friends don't understand the code. Your spouse's friends absolutely don't. If you are single, you're not sure that the right person is worth giving up time on the water for. 11, vacation days for fishing are holidays, weekends, and when one lives in close proximity to a great fishery. That's the time between sleeping. Question 12, you will sleep in your truck at a boat landing. I have done that more than once. 13, you have shunned people from your family circle because they don't know who KVD is. 14, if you have ever fished a tournament, regardless of where you fished or finished, you looked to see who did better than you. And you feel okay about fishing down in the bottom half as long as you beat somebody with some name guy or some guy that won some tournaments. As long as somebody below you is a fishing champion, you did okay, regardless of how you finished. 15, you watch live stream tournament weigh-ins, and if something goes wrong, you post something on the fishing chat forum, or you write in a protest on a Twitter. 16, your fishing chat forum name is tied to your boat or your favorite species of fish. That's the one that was kind of open for us. That one I didn't. Double headers are not about baseball. Absolutely, double header. 18, you use sun protection Formula 80. That's the toughest sunscreen you can get. Yet, you have suntan raccoon eyes from your polarized sunglasses. Al, Jimmy, and I have permanent raccoon eyes that never ends. I've had the raccoon eyes now for going on probably 50 years. 19, you love Rapala billboards, but you still may not say Rapala or Rapala or Rapala right correctly. There's so many different pronunciations. 20, you are never bored. There are always hooks to sharpen and reels to respool. I told my wife some time ago, I said, honey, people that spool reels together stay together. And guess what? She bought the premise. That's it anyway. So if you answered at least 5 of these questions, yes, you have obsessive-compulsive fishing syndrome. That's it for now. And by the way, take a check of our book at anglingedge.com. That's anglingedge.com.
The Woods, coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Have you ever wanted to disappear into the woods? Have you ever wanted to tie your own flies, but never taken the time? Have you ever wanted to speak turkey? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
When I was a kid, I would spend all day wandering around the woods. Trees hid me from Indians. I dodged arrows as I ran from tree to tree. My imagination entertained me back then, unlike most kids today. Some days I would climb up into trees, comforting arms, and soak in the wonder of the woods or just daydream. I can still remember a weird knot or the feel of the bark. As I got older, I would head to the woods with my dog and my single-shot 22. We didn't have a lot of extra money to be buying more shells, and that squirrel was supper. My boys grew up enjoying the woods too. Now my grandkids are discovering the wonders of the woods. I still enjoy hiking the woods. I still climb trees, but now it's to sit in a tree stand waiting for a deer to walk by. My granddaughter poses for pictures on a grapevine swing. My grandson loves to hunt squirrels, and I smile as I watch them, and I remember. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Thanks, Larry. Let me tell you who we have with us right now. His name is Peter T. It's actually
Thliveros.
Thliveros. That's why they call him Peter T.
Peter T, yeah.
I remember Peter T. when Ray Scott used to introduce him. He would always say, 350-pound Peter T. Peter T. has fished 4 Bassmaster Classics. He has won 1 Bassmaster Open on the Southern Trail. And he was 1996 FLW Angler of the Year. He's got 1 win in the FLW. He's got 10 top 10 finishes, and he's a former BASS Pro Angler whose lifetime winnings exceed over $2 million, and he's been the recipient of many, many bass fishing honors and awards throughout the years. Angling heroes are Rick Clunn and Guido Hibden. His home lake is the St. Johns River. So he's a former restaurant cook, which is probably why he got so large. And his home is in Jacksonville, Florida, and he loves barbecue ribs, classic rock, and his favorite movie is A League of Their Own, and his son Nick is entering the fishing world as well, so it's becoming a family business. First of all, Mr. T, welcome. May I call you Mr. T?
You can call me anything you want, Alex. As long as I'm, there for dinner when it happens. That's the main.
You mind me talking about 350-pound Peter T?
Well, I'm about 340 now. I've actually lost a little bit of weight, but whenever Ray Scott was talking about 350 pounds, that was the amount of fish I was bringing to the scales that day.
He never clarified that. I always thought it referred to your weight, but boy, was I wrong, I guess,
No. You were right. I mean, he talked about, Ray was the kind of guy that talked about anything he wanted to talk about when he had you up on the stage.
Right.
And he didn't mind embarrassing you one bit. I mean, he kind of made his living by doing that, and not necessarily embarrassing you, but putting you on the spot.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're right. Did you fish FLW and BASS concurrently since 1996, or did you give up bass?
Well, I kind of did. I mean, when FLW first started, I fished them both, and then I went up until about, I don't even really know, to about 2001 or something like that. And I kind of left FLW and started concentrating solely on bass, and from then on, I kind of mixed them up together. But now I've just left bass and concentrating solely on FLW.
Do you find that helps you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the kind of person that multitasks real well, and 2 trails, really a lot of travel, a lot of expense. And I'm, from a business point, it just made more sense for me to jump on FLW right now and stick with that crowd. It's just, all things being equal, I mean, you spend a little less money up front on entry fees and expenses, and you have a shot at making a little bit more if you do well.
Right. Your son is also in the business now. How old is your son, by the way?
He just turned 20 this past week.
Really?
And, we're actually out fishing as we're talking right now. We're on Lake George, which is kind of the southern end, or actually the mid portion of the St. Johns, of the upper St. Johns.
Yep. Just
below Palatka. And this is we're out just fishing today, getting ready for a little buddy tournament that we're going to fish together tomorrow.
Really?
He stood side by side with me in a lot of tournaments when I was practicing, during the summer when he wasn't in school, and was travel with me, and he's decided that he wants to give it a shot, and he fished his first FLW event this past May with me. We actually bought his entry as a co-angler and gave it to him as a Christmas present last December.
Yep.
came up and fished that tournament with me in May and won it like it was, nothing to it.
Really?
He get that. I mean, this is how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess.
All right, we got to take a break right now. When we come back, I want to talk to you about a lot more stuff, and especially the ICAST show that just ended. All right, Peter, we'll be right back, folks. Don't go away. We got the legendary Peter T.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Papa was a fishing man. Papa was a fishing man.
Wow! Woo. Hold on to that, and that's a good one since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
What is a jack plate, and do you need one on your boat? Hello, this is Sammy Lee. According to my guest today, you do, and we'll find out why after this message.
It's the last sound you want to hear when you'd rather be on the water. A tow truck hauling you in because the brakes on your boat trailer failed. Don't let this happen. Make sure your trailer is equipped with unique functional products. UFP, America's leading manufacturer of boat trailer brakes and braking systems.
So how come your trailer didn't have UFP brakes?
So how come you can't mind your darn business?
Unique functional products from people dedicated to making things happen.
Do you need a jack plate on your fishing boat? I asked the founder of TH Marine, Bill Huntley, that question.
Well, the answer to that is yes. Most all boats can benefit some from a hydraulic jack plate. And we're talking about fishing boats. Can benefit from a hydraulic jack plate for several reasons. One is you can run in shallower water, and we fish with different people. Mm-hmm. All people don't weigh the same time, and you're a testimony to that.
Right.
And if you get a guy your size to go fishing with you, your load at that point in the boat is different to what it would be if I got 120-pound one of my grandsons to go fishing with me. Right. My load is different, and the difference in the load and the location of that load in the boat changes the whole dynamics of how the boat runs, the whole, and on and on and on. As you fish all day, if you make a lot of long runs, the load in your boat changes dramatically because you burn fuel off. Fuel weighs, 6.5, 7 pounds per gallon. Mm-hmm. I usually have to fill up a live well because I got fish. You might not be faced with that problem, but that changes your load. And so by being able to raise and lower that jack plate, you can improve the performance and handling of your boat regardless of the load.
And I agree. I'll continue my visit with Bill and Jeff Huntley next time, so I hope you'll join us. I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, tight lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by FishMate, the ultimate fishing app for your smartphone. By UFP, America's leading maker of brake systems for boat trailers. By Smart Baits, color changes everything. And by Cheyenne Ridge Signature Lodge. Discover why our lodge earned 2 Beretta Tridents.
Thanks, Sammy Lee. And Sammy is usually the MC for the induction ceremonies for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And somebody that I think we need to recommend for that hall is my guest today, Peter T. Peter T is an FLW pro angler. He's a former BASS angler as well, and his lifetime winnings exceed $2 million. And he's been the recipient of countless bass fishing honors and awards through the years. His angling heroes, Rick Clunn and Guido Hibden, 2 friends of mine, and his home lake is the St. Johns River. And today he is fishing the southern end of Lake George. He's a former restaurant cook whose home is in Jacksonville, Florida, and he loves barbecue ribs, classic rock, and his favorite movie is A League of Their Own. And his son Nick is now entering the fishing world as well. In fact, Peter T is out fishing with Nick right now. Peter T, first of all, welcome back. Let me ask you about the ICAST show. The ICAST show, which just ended, had a lot of new products. What were your picks for the exciting new products?
Well, there was. I really didn't get to spend a lot of time walking the show floor and seeing a lot of the new stuff. I spent a big majority of my time in the Lew's booth. We introduced a couple of new products over there. on the reel line and also rods, and we were pretty excited about that. We had a new inshore series of spinning and casting reel that's going to be dynamite for the inshore saltwater fishermen, the coastal anglers. The real excitement is the new BB1N Pro, which is the first reel of its kind on the market that has an external centrifugal brake adjustment. In other words, you don't have to take the side plate of the reel off to adjust the centrifugal brakes. You can turn a dial as if it was a magnetic dial and affect the spool speed as you're casting without having to really stop fishing. You can really just keep going, and it's really sensitive adjustment. It works super great. In fact, we're using them both right now. We've got them out here, and we're still got some of the test models, and we're putting them through the paces, and they seem to be holding out pretty good.
You don't have to open the side of the reel to readjust it. That's the way it should be, right?
Well, I mean, that's kind of how we're looking at it. I think it's anything that increases the amount of time you spend fishing versus messing with your stuff is definitely a positive. The more cash you can make, the more strikes you're going to have a chance at. So
absolutely.
About making it simpler.
Right. What was the other interesting innovation that you saw?
Well, one of the coolest things I saw was from a company called Live Target that a lot of people are familiar with. They've got a new bait out called a bait ball that I thought was probably the most innovative product that I've seen at the show, and probably yet. It's basically a clear plastic body that has the impressions and also the silhouettes of smaller minnows inside of it.
Right.
So it gives the impression of a small school of minnows all swimming together in a real tight group, and it's kind of a neat deal. I mean, it's almost like a three-dimensional lure because of the amount of what you see inside the bait. And I think the topwater bait in particular and the jerk bait are going to be where it's the most effective. They also make them a crankbait, and it's just a real neat concept. It's something that nobody's ever seen or done before. The closest thing to it is an antique lure that was made years ago that was basically a clear tube about the diameter of a test tube with a screw top on it, and it holes through it that you could actually put a live minnow inside of and lower it down. It had hooks on it, and the fish would see the live minnow swimming around inside the tube and try and eat it. And
right.
that was the closest thing to it since then.
I remember that. It's almost like an Alabama rig for crankbaits, although it's not an Alabama rig. It's one lure.
Absolutely.
So, has the Alabama rig spawned a lot of? I mean, obviously it spawned a lot of knockoffs, but this is the first time I've seen any kind of a crankbait try to emulate the Alabama rig. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely outside the box thinking on Live Target's part.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just different, and it makes sense that it should work very well. I mean, it's just one of those things that until we get them in our hands and get out here and fish with them, we won't really know. But I can imagine a topwater bait with that.
I haven't seen the topwater bait. Is the topwater bait similar to the crankbait?
Yeah, it's basically the same principle, except it's in the shape of a popper instead of it doesn't have a lip on it. Obviously, it's just like a popping type lure with the clear body with the images of the minnows inside of it.
Right.
So it looks like a group of minnows on the surface, and I think that's going to be a big player right there.
Yeah,
I think it's just really.
That sounds pretty cool. You got a popper that looks like a bunch of minnows breaking the surface. I mean, there are places I know I would throw that myself. So
yeah, absolutely.
So
I can't wait to get a hold of them. So try them out.
What's happening right now? Is anything happening where you're fishing?
We're getting a few bites. We've not really been successful in hooking up. We're throwing a frog up, over some floating vegetation, and we've had a few fish come up and get it, but they're not really getting it good, and we've lost the ones that have hit us. So, we've had half a dozen bites this morning doing it, and they were decent fish, but nothing big.
Okay.
So we're still kind of scratching around looking for something to do.
We got to take a break now, so if you would take a break with us and concentrate on your fishing, and then we'll bother you one more time, and then that'll be it for the show then, all right?
Not a problem.
All right, Peter T., good luck in the next few minutes, and we'll check back with you on the show, all right?
Sounds good.
All right.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
Should see her out on the fly. I got high-tech equipment, rods and reels and lines. Brand new pickup that I bought.
Fly fishing for trout in Montana is one of those bucket list experiences. The country is big and beautiful, the streams are clean and full of fish. Hatches come off one after the other through the summer, and there's usually plenty action. Tony Schoner's family runs a trout fishing guide service out of Missoula. Tony says at least on your first trip to Montana, hiring a guide is the way to go. I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Fish Radio. Today, Tony offers tips for linking up with a guide who will provide you with a quality fishing experience.
Stay with us. Wade will be right back.
Imagine yourself thrown from your boat. It's cold, so cold that the shock of hitting the water makes you gasp and inhale water. So cold that your muscles can't keep you afloat. So cold that calling out for help becomes an impossible task. Boating fatalities for sportsmen go up when the weather gets cold, and many of us go hunting and fishing. So wearing a U.S. Coast Guard approved life jacket or float coat is a good idea whenever you're on the water. I'm Wade Bourne, reminding you to boat responsibly.
For more information, visit uscgboating.org.
Cabela's is the world's foremost outfitter for hunting, fishing, camping, and outdoor gear. They offer more gear than anybody, best selection, prices, and quality, all backed by Cabela's legendary guarantee. Shopping with Cabela's has never been easier or more convenient. You can outfit all your needs through Cabela's catalogs, website, and their many stores. Check them out at Cabela's.com. Cabela's, the world's foremost outfitter.
This is Wired to Fish Radio.
Trout fishing in Montana is a big slice of heaven, and to ensure a quality experience, Tony Schoner recommends going with a guide. Tony says you can research on the internet, especially contacting fly shops for recommendations, and he also has this advice.
I think the best kind of a guide to go with is one that focuses his efforts on one river or two rivers or three rivers, and spends all of their time on those rivers. There are guides out there that hit the hot spots, so to speak, and bounce from river to river to river to river. But, it's not that they're not good guides, because they are, but they won't know the river as well as a guy who spends, all day long on the same river day after day after day, or two rivers or three rivers. And I think that, going through fly shops is a good way to go, because they know the knowledge. They've got trips coming in every day. They know what the fish are hitting on, and by and large, most of your fly shops, here in the western part of the state are managed by good, responsible people who fish themselves. They walk the talk.
That's Tony Schoner with some advice for locating a good trout guide in Montana. And that's also today's Wired to Fish Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening and get outside.
Thanks, Wade. And we are outside with Peter T. and his son. And those guys are fishing right now on Lake George. And it's down in Florida. And Peter T., first of all, welcome back. And let me tell folks about who you are. Peter T. is an FLW angler and a former BASS pro angler whose lifetime winnings exceed $2 million. He's been a recipient of a countless amount of bass fishing honors and awards through the years. I'm sure he's a candidate for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, and he is with us today. He's fishing with his son, Nick. And Peter T., first of all, this is probably an unfair question, but what is your favorite lake?
Really and truly, Alex, it is an unfair question, because I fish so many good bodies of water and all over the country that it kind of depends on what time of year. But yeah. I guess one that stands out in my mind time after time again is Lake Champlain up in upstate New York, Vermont border. It's truly a magnificent body of water. You can catch really great schools of smallmouth and big largemouth too, and it's just chock full of fish. So I enjoy going up there and fish in those waters as much as any place. But I mean, I love to fish Lake Seminole down here in the south. It's one of my favorite lakes. And you know, when you get to Texas, you've got Rayburn, which is a tremendous lake. You know, it just really depends on where you're at.
A lot of people say Champlain, and I mean, I think it's because I fish Lake Champlain myself, and it's very diverse, you know, big largemouth, and there's big smallmouths too, and they're plentiful. The largemouth weights generally are heavier than the smallmouth weight in any body of water, and that includes Lake Champlain. Let me ask you this. What is your greatest fishing weakness, if I may be so bold as to ask you that? Not that you have any.
I do. I have quite a few, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I mean, I can tell you that my greatest strength is anything, you know, fishing soft plastics. I have a lot of patience and I make a nice slow presentation. And I consider myself fair at a lot of other things, but I guess one of my biggest weaknesses probably is, of all things, spinnerbait fishing.
Really? I would have thought that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's a chunk and wind technique for most people, but I try to make it a little too technical sometimes, and I often have trouble making up my mind on what blade combinations to throw and what speed of retrieve to use and that kind of stuff. So it's not as straightforward for me as it is for a lot of other anglers. So I think that's probably my biggest weakness. I don't spend as much time drop shotting as I should. I mean, that's something that I feel like is an essential part of fishing today, and I don't do that much of it. I do enough of it just to get by, and when it's the thing to do, I do fine. But I have a tendency of not knowing when to pick it up, you know, often enough.
You think, does being from Florida hurt you somewhat? I mean, obviously, drop shotting is a technique that was born on the West Coast, and that's really not Florida fishing.
It's really not Florida fishing, but you know, I spend the majority of my time outside of the state, so it's something that I've had to learn to use, and like I say, knowing when and when not to is probably my biggest weakness on that.
Right.
I don't think it's a matter of being able to get the bites or fishing the right baits or that kind of stuff. It's just you know, when to pick it up and when not to.
I'm going to veer off course here for a second and ask you about fishing Ray Scott's private lake with George W. Bush, who was president of the United States at the time. You know, what was that like?
It was about like fishing a day on the lake with anybody else.
Really?
Because he was a very laid-back individual who, you know, was there to fish. He wasn't there for any other reason. I mean, he wanted to catch a big fish, and he was concentrating on that. So basically, it was like you and I in the boat or anybody else in the boat. But in the back of your mind, you know, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I'm in the boat with the most powerful man in the world.
Right.
And,
right.
You know, nerving knowing that at any point in time, one of those red dots could show up on your shirt.
Right.
Do something wrong.
Well, Peter T., you and I in the boat would be quite a sight, you know, because we both weigh about 350 pounds apiece, so that would not be good. Listen, Peter.
Well, it depends on the size of the boat. I mean, if we
that's
were
right.
it'd be fine.
If we had a big boat, that'd be great. The show is almost over. Where can people find out more about you?
You know, they can get on my website at petertfishing.com, and I have a Facebook page, Peter T. Fishing. You know, also, I stay on that, not all the time, you know, I try to. I'm not real good at it. I'm not as adept at doing this internet stuff like most of the younger guys are, but I do my best to keep up with it. My wife keeps her foot in my butt to stay up with it, so that's the kind of places you can find me the easiest. PeterThliveros.com or PeterTFishing.com.
All right,
on the Facebook.
Peter T., we got to go, and good luck to you and your son fishing, all right?
Alex, thank you so much for having me on the show, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Okay, thanks for coming on, all right? Peter, bye-bye, folks.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.